In my last video, I talked about some foundational ideas for practicing oneness. Now let's get into the practice itself. I'm going to share with you one oneness practice that you can try today. Hey everyone, I'm Sonja and this is Holiness Connection. I'm so glad you're here, and I will be sharing in just a moment that oneness practice. However, I did just want to let you know that it's not, the only kind of practice. There's a diversity of practices, and different things will work better for different people for getting into this feeling and this practice of oneness, which is partly why I started my Substack newsletter, which you can join for free below. When you do, you will get a free guided meditation. I find that guided meditations are one good way in practice to feel into this, but there are others as well. So go ahead and check out that link in the description box below. And I also wanted to do a quick caveat about when I talk about today. I'm going to be talking about opening to another person at one point during the practice and letting go of bracing. So I'm not talking about not having boundaries. We're really talking about a different level or stance or approach here. And so, like I talked about in the last video, we're not at the level of story or interacting in that way with the person. We're talking about this level of the foundational truth of our oneness. And that's where we're at. And that's the awareness state that we're in when we're practicing this. So it doesn't have to do with at that other level or state not having boundaries in whatever way that means for you, whether it's energetic or verbal boundaries. So that's different. And, in some future videos, I'll probably get into how to sort of do both at the same time, how you can have this level of awareness and practice at the same time as interacting with someone, and even in cases where you might need to have boundaries. But for today, just know that we're at this level that's just this foundational truth level that is being felt into and practiced. Okay, so let's get into the practice itself. The first step is to come into presence, to come into centeredness. Some people might call it grounding. And so if you have a particular grounding practice that works for you, definitely this would be the time to use it, or a mindfulness practice that can also bring us into the present. So some ways to do this, just examples here, are to ground by imagining your legs as a tree trunk going down into the earth. You can come into more the mindfulness aspect by really focusing in on your senses, like every little sound you hear and noting them. And there could be other methods as well, like I said, deep breathing, belly, chest, exhale can be one way to do it. But the idea being to come into the present moment. And you may be practicing this along to try it out as we go. It may well be something that you do to practice later. But feel free to take as long as you want at each of these stages, because we want to make sure each step is felt into fully. So once you're in that place of center or groundedness and presence, from there, you can expand your awareness. So you're going to expand your awareness, noticing yourself as part of the greater whole. So some people might call this witnessing presence, but it's a state, even while you're still centered, like you are, of having an expanded awareness. And this is where you have the fundamental awareness of the overall oneness. So for some people, it might help to go expansive in how they're thinking of things, like they're going outwards to their house, the neighborhood, beyond. For some people, it's more of a sense of almost like you're in a web of connection to everything around you. Whatever works for you, you can just try feeling into it without any of those techniques as well. Just feeling like your awareness is expanded, that you're centered, but there you are also in the midst of it all. And now, from that state of being centered and also having an expanded awareness, notice that you can take in what's around you at the same time. So you can take in the room around you, or maybe you're outside, you're taking in some nature elements. You can take in living beings around you, whether that's plants or animals. And then noticing other people around you. So perhaps there's someone else in the house with you, even if they're not in the same room, a loved one perhaps. Or maybe you're outside and there's someone who's passing by, or someone off in the distance. And if there's no one around you and you want to practice this, you can certainly bring someone to mind who you know, or you can imagine that someone's out there passing by on the sidewalk. And so now a tendril of your awareness, a main tendril of your awareness, is on this person. You don't have to imagine it as a tendril, just the point being that you are taking in the awareness of this person. And you notice that you both are part of the overall oneness. And the next step then is to feel into your connection with this person. Sometimes it's helpful to imagine that there's a cord between you or a string connecting you heart to heart, maybe a beam of light. But you don't have to imagine that. Just feeling into the fact that you're both part of the overall oneness and you also are connected. And feeling that openness between you. If you notice any bracing, you can relax it. If you notice any barrier feeling between you, see if you can just dissolve that. Just let it dissolve. And take a few moments to really feel into that sense of oneness with the other person. No need to analyze it or put words on it. You may have some other qualities, feeling qualities that come up at the same time, and that's fine, like love or appreciation. But overall, it's just sensing into that fundamental truth of the oneness, and within it, your connection in oneness to this other person. So, spending as long there as you want. And then, if you want to practice more, you can choose another person around you or in your mind's eye to practice with. As you do this, you may notice that you can get into a connective state very quickly, or noticing that connection very quickly without having to go through all the steps as you practice it more. Or perhaps there's a person or a particular moment when it's easier to do so. But really use the steps as a support for you, taking each time you connect with another person, each time you're doing the practice with another person, going through all those steps. So again, they were to come into presence and centeredness, then to expand your awareness to more of that witnessing present state that takes in the fundamental truth of the overall oneness. Then taking in, noticing you can take in different aspects of your environment or the beings around you, and then to the people, and then with a specific person, feeling into each being part of the overall oneness, and then your open connection to them. So hopefully that was helpful. Like I said, this is really just one way of practicing, one way of trying to get into that feel and practice of oneness as we explore. So thank you for being here and for practicing, and I hope you will avail yourself of my Substack below so you can get that free guided meditation and also continue to practice oneness with me.